Our second speaker is Ms. Christine Hofmann. Christine works as a skills development specialist in the ILO Decent Work Team for North Africa in Cairo since 2013. I was asking her what is this decent team exactly, but we find out.
We have a session about that.
She supports ILO constituents and projects in the areas of youth employment, workplace learning and apprenticeship, active labor market programs, TVET policies, rural skills training and skills anticipation in 12 North African countries. For the ILO Skills and Employability Department in Geneva, which she joined in 2006, she conducted research on informal apprenticeship in a number of countries and developed a resource guide on upgrading informal apprenticeship in Africa. She also co-authored the book Skills for Green Jobs. She participated in research on skills anticipation, apprenticeship, probability of skills, and social dialogue and training. Before joining the ILO, Christine worked as a political consultant and coordinated development projects for trade unions in Africa and Asia for the German Labour Foundation. She holds a master's degree in international business and area studies. The floor is yours, Christine.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction and the invitation to be part of such a distinguished panel. The ILO promotes decent work. So the name of our
That's where decent come from.
Of our team takes this this name forward. What does decent work stand for? And I'm starting with that definition in order to make the point of my main contribution here, that when we talk about job creation, we have to talk about the quality of the jobs as well, and not just the numbers. And I'm very glad about everything my colleague has said about social protection and labor standards, and I'll get back to several of these points, adding the ILO view. So decent work means, first of all, productive jobs for women and men. It means jobs that comply with fundamental principles and rights at work. And maybe that's one of the elements that the Miles World Bank approach is, that I didn't see that.
Labor standards.
Okay, that's very good. All right, well, I'll get back to some of the other points. We consider social protection as well as part of decent work, very important, and social dialogue. And now you'll tell me that's part of the labor institutions. For us, this is one of the big pillars. Social dialogue means, and that's part of the ILO's organizational setup, we have for each country that is member in our organization, the government, but also workers' organization and employers' organizations. Because these three parties are what constitutes the world of work, and the interests of these three parties need to be taken into account when we discuss any labor-related issues. So let me add a little bit to important labor institutions. So when we talk about social dialogue, we talk about collective bargaining and wage setting mechanisms. And that's an area that's really underdeveloped in Egypt. We now have a new trade union law, and that's already a step forward. Yet still we don't see any sectoral level industrial relations, any real dialogue happening that would help bring the economy and job creation forward, because it's about the effectiveness of how labor markets work. So the ILO works both on the demand side and the supply side and the intermediation side of the labor market. And that's where the different labor market institutions come in. I'd also like to mention the importance of employment services and all these intermediary mechanisms that are also still very weak in Egypt and that require a lot more investment. We have a pretty scattered landscape of employment services, with the Ministry of Manpower providing the employment offices and providing some services, but with a large number and array of other actors that provide some uncoordinated services. Let's put it that way. That still many young people do not have access to. So that resonates with what you mentioned about career guidance and strengthening labor market information, strengthening the availability of labor market information, not only for the job seekers but also for the employers. So when we talk about job quality, we also have to talk about informality. And informality is also an enormous issue in Egypt. And when we talk about informality, we don't only talk about the small informal businesses, but we talk about informal employment, informal businesses. And that segment in Egypt is even the bigger problem, because also in terms of numbers, that's where a big bulk of informality lies. So people have jobs, but they don't have social protection. They don't have a contract. And they get paid by the day or by the month or by the goodwill of the employer. So that's where the fundamental principles and rights at work. And that has as a dimension non-discrimination. That has as a dimension no child labor. All of that comes in and is only working if the good legislation that is in place is being enforced. So informality, and there is a very important new instrument that was discussed at the ILO, the recommendation on transitions from informal to formal employment, that has a whole set of mechanisms and approaches, both providing incentives to move out of informality and providing the right legal enforcement. Well, maybe just to add one thing to one argument to the social protection argument, and I think you're very well elaborated on the different arguments. Maybe just to add one, and that we have seen in the time of the global financial crisis, that social protection also acts as an automatic stabilizer, because when a country is on a downturn, people don't consume, right? And that actually drags the country further down. So if there's a good social protection system in place, people can still continue consuming. The ILO also has an instrument on social protection floors, and in partnership with many other international development partners as well, we've conducted a social protection assessment, a social protection floor assessment in Egypt to see where are still gaps, in which groups might not be sufficiently covered, and how could that be addressed. I think I'll maybe leave it at that, and I look forward to entering into more discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Christine. In fact, I hope ILO will consider among your intermediation labor services employers protection.
Well, first think about protecting the workers, and then we'll think about protecting the employers. The ILO areas of concern include decent work. It's not only a matter of jobs. Yes, by decent job is meant the quality of the job provided, and social protection, holding social dialogue between all of the stakeholders, also collective bargaining on behalf of the trade unions. All of these services are already weak. The employment services provided by the manpower ministry are also weak. The informal employment in the formal sector, according to Christine, are one of the hallmarks of the economy here. So we have the large number of people who are working within the formal system, but under informal circumstances. She also described social protection as an economic stabilizer, particularly during the times of the downturns. This helps people survive these crises. They also address the gaps between the of the labor market, and I hope you address one of the questions that we included, which are the job opportunities in these sectors and your projections as an ILO.
Well, we mean the most sectors that would create job creations. Well, I don't know, Abla, where did you get this information from, where the work of the Ministry of Manpower is weak? Anyway, says Dr. Omar. No, she said the Ministry of Manpower, actually, says Mr. Omar. She's talking in Arabic here. Are you listening to the English interpretation? No, she means, I'm not talking about Christine. I'm talking about Dr. Abla. It's Dr. Abla who said the Ministry of Manpower. As you know, Dr. Abla picks and chooses, says Mr. Omar.
Our third panelist is Ahmed Al-Alfy. Ahmed is the founder and chairman of Sawari Ventures. He was named one of the most creative people in the world by Fast Company. Ahmed has been an early and growth stage investor for the past 30 years. He founded Hybrid Capital Partners in 1990, a private investment partnership which funded, grew, and exited several successful companies. In 2010, Ahmed founded Sawari Ventures, which is a Cairo-based venture capital firm that aims to transform MENA economies through funded technology-based companies. In 2011, Sawari created Flat 6 Labs, MENA's leading accelerator, with offices in Cairo, Jeddah, Beirut, Tunisia, and Abu Dhabi, and opening soon in Bahrain and Morocco, seeding over 130 startups to date. He also funded Nafham. He also founded Nafham, the top Arabic online video educational platform covering the Egyptian, Saudi, Syrian, Kuwaiti, and Algerian public school curricula, providing over 90 million free lessons to over 900,000 monthly students. TATP, founded in 2013, took over half of the American University in Cairo's Tahrir Square campus to form the Greek campus, the 25,000 square meters office park, where over 130 startups and 1,000 people work and collaborate. Ahmed, please.
Thank you. Next time we're just going to mail a violence says Ahmed, he's a nice guy, maybe listen to him. It's too long. Thank you very much. Maybe I'll take a slightly different point of view on this whole issue and look at it short-term, long-term. Many of the things that we constantly talk about in job creation are short-term. And I look at things in a longer-term thing. And one of my big mistakes is I think long-term as I get older, not when I'm younger, but I take life backwards. The problem that I think is we need to move from extractive economies to creative economies. And by extractive, I don't mean extracting resources. What we extract is the potential of the human beings here. Our best and brightest people go work overseas. And the ones that are here are relegated to jobs where they're capped to be service providers for creative companies outside. And then the other ones are capped even worse because they're given jobs that as soon as they make enough money to be replaced by a machine, they'll be replaced by a machine. We're the only country I see where we replace machines with people because the people are cheaper. So we're putting ceilings on our people at every level, even in our job creation programs. When you give a guy a job being the parking ticket guy who hands you the parking ticket instead of the machine, he has no potential, he has no future. And you split that machine up among two people, that's two people earning half of what a machine costs you. There's no development, there's no future, there's no nothing. It's a Band-Aid on that spot today. We need to shift the thought process to allow, and that doesn't even address the concept of artificial intelligence and what that's going to do to jobs where half the people in the West are afraid of their jobs. We're still working our way up to jobs that machines do. They're working their way up to jobs that AI will do. The other thing is, we think of funding SMEs as the solution to job creation. Except we look at it the other way around. When we fund SMEs, debt funding for SMEs creates SMEs that rely on assets, because otherwise they can't get a loan. And those are the SMEs that create jobs of the past. The creative future creating jobs, which are the high growth companies, are the entrepreneurial ones. And they only work with equity investments. You can't really fund those with a £200 billion debt program, right? That funds SMEs that might go buy some equipment, might create some jobs, and will eventually be made obsolete in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. The growth creative jobs, which are the ones that investment funds in the US fund, and over the last 30 years, they've accounted for about 20% of US GDP. So we need to look at companies that are high growth, that need equity investment to really create futuristic jobs, not old jobs and borrow and create more textile mills. Sorry. The other thing, in spending, I'd say I've probably met with 5,000 smart young kids in the last 4 years, and interviewed at least 1,000 companies or 1,000 ideas, heard 1,000 pitches. The thing I find among all of them is they're really good, or some of them, the bad ones, are missing 3 things. And I think those 3 things are actually prevalent throughout Egypt and throughout some of the poorer areas. And I'd say the short-term solution to job creation is to reduce the friction of commerce and the ease with which these people do business with each other now, as much as creating jobs, because they will create more jobs. They will create more plumber jobs if the guy knows how to sell and get 3 more jobs for the guys who work for him. Rather than creating debt, we need to look at the jobs-based education, but I wouldn't call it jobs-based education, I call it market-based education. Because the kids that come, that want to create a company, and they're the ones that are going to hire the 10 or 20 more people, they come in with, I'd say 3 components missing. Number one is they have no concept of cash flow management. He knows how to make one of these, but how do I manage my money to make 10 of them, where I can hire 3 people? They have no idea. They have no idea how to manage their cash flow so that the needs of their second child doesn't interfere with their business, or doesn't interfere with the time for their wife. The second thing is sales. They don't know how to do human-to-human commercial interaction. And that's really, it's about, you see people in the street all the time and tell you, I'll sell you this thing for 10. And you say, but it's worth 1. He says, okay, how about 2? And you've lost the confidence of the customer. They don't understand commercial human interaction. And I say the last thing is the concept of planning. They don't really understand planning. How do I plan a project from start to finish? They take step 1, 5, 2, 8. They have no clue. And I'd say those 3 things are really the concepts that need to be put into the marketplace to allow existing SMEs or existing informal economy participants to do a better job. And then the last thing, just share with you my experience of seeing the young men and women of Egypt, thousands and thousands. The biggest thing that we can do to improve female employment in Egypt is not to give them training and not to give them support. It's to get the men in their life out of their way. All right? Truly, the ceiling on women is the men in their life. They are so much better than the men, but the guys in their life, from their father, their husband, their brother, are the cap on what their potential and ambition is. And it's education for the guys that will improve women's lives. Okay? Thank you.
A call for a single approach. It's not promoting marriage at all.
Definitely promoting marriage. Promoting marriage with a little bit of brainwashing to the guys in education for them.
Ahmed is a very decent guy. I will not deprive you of your nerdy approach of summing up.
Well, anyway, Ahmed understands Arabic. He doesn't have to put on the headsets. I have to say that Ahmed is the most optimistic person I have ever met. He puts aside anything negative in his life and he goes positive. That's excellent indeed. Well, Ahmed said that we are focusing on short-term employment and we do not give attention to the long-term employment. In order to do that, we have to move from extractive economy to a head-creating economy. Well, this means that instead of creativity, job creation, we stick to the old jobs that by time are shifted to mechanical work. So we are setting a ceiling to job creation, and he gave examples in addition to artificial intelligence that would cancel most of the current jobs. And he added that we are funding SMEs, and we think that this is the solution, but we are actually promoting obsolete jobs that would not be lasting and will perish by time. The creative jobs that are that have high growth need to be focused on, and these jobs represent 20% of the growth that we are the 20% of the US GDP that was created through these jobs, and that's what he is focusing on. The Greek campus experience that he had for the last 5 years. He interviewed 5,000 young men and women. Well, he said 5,000, Omar. He said 5,000. I'm sure, says Abla. And he said that there are three common problems among all these young people. They have no knowledge about managing their cash flow. They know how to manufacture goods, but how to manage their money, they have no clue about it. They lose their credibility vis-a-vis the sellers, the buyers, and they lack to planning, and this is one of the skills if they acquire will increase their probability and potential of jobs. And the last thing, the one I loved the most that he mentioned about the female employment, women employment in general in Egypt. In order to promote it, we have to get rid of all the men in the life of women, as they are hindering actually their career. As this is actually setting a ceiling in their life. And by the way, we as ECES, we are very much interested in this gender issue, and we are cooperating with the Canadian Embassy in order to provide information to women in order to help them create jobs, as they are provided with information from the men in their life who are misleading them. So I have to greet this comment. Can I just correct something? Well, now he's speaking in Arabic. Not all of the 4,000 or the 5,000 young men and women I met have these problems. Well, some of them have these issues, but these are the three common issues that I observed among all of them. Okay, fine, but these issues exist, and they are real issues, and unfortunately we did not pay attention. We did not invest enough on humans in order to upgrade the country. Well, we will be having a department for marriage within ECES, it seems. Anyway.